This is the voice of the Committee of Enigmas, a special subsidiary group of the Trans-Global Institute of Archaeological Investigations. My name is Dr. Mungo Macrae, and I wish to introduce you to the Entropy X Phenomena Archives.
What is entropy? Entropy is a term used to describe the collateral effects of a momentary or episodic infiltration of the paranormal on the ordinary world of empirical values, deterministic philosophies, and common sense understanding. Such effects, in a sense, are a form of entropy that results from the impact of supranormal presences or factors of agency on the material structures of known reality. Entropy causes activations of deterioration or excitation in the material order that do not occur naturally in the actions and the reactions of nature itself. It represents the introduction of rogue elements into the system, the outcomes of which are as chaotic as they are inevitable, as illuminating as they are dangerous, and as weird as they are emphatically real. Emphatically real. Emphatically real.
The following transmissions use ionic mimicry deflection techniques developed by Dr. Fabio Zanelli at the Mirror Lab in Sassomarcone, Bologna, Italy, broadcasting at 1.8 kilohertz for special standard ultra-low frequency decryption. Part 1. The strange case of Dr. Fleemus's skull collection.
Preternatural sonic inferences. Vintage case studies of the exosciences in the relation to sound. We have been sent a letter from an illustrious colleague and member of the committee, Professor Madeleine Escoffier, who wishes to share a written account she received from an acquaintance of hers at the University of Edinburgh. The man in question is a well-known affiliate of the Royal College of Surgeons, who was keen to relate the particulars of a visit he paid to a known practitioner of the outmoded medical science of phrenology, the study of the shapes of skulls as a means of determining the characteristics, intelligence, and personality traits of the people who once inhabited them. This man, who wishes to remain anonymous, has undergone an experience which has left him profoundly shaken, which has been revealed to us in an abridged version of his account, communicated verbatim as follows. I was invited by Dr. Fleemus, the eccentric anatomist of the Edinburgh fraternity, to consume a narcotic in liquid form prior to viewing his skull collection. It was a strange request, but I was favorably given to the positive effects of medicinal substances, and with a willingness to indulge him, I duly obliged. Almost with immediate effect, as I perused the glass cases in which the skulls were ensconced, I began to notice a peculiar change in the way I was perceiving them. I developed an awareness of the individual detail of each skull, to the point that I began to see the actual people who had once inhabited them. Not the faces per se, plump with flesh, which in former times had overlain them, but the recognizable array of their specific physiognomies, pronounced in the form of each grinning facade, such as I could perceive them within the contours of each bony infrastructure. In the same instant as I regarded them intensely, the skulls began to whisper and to chatter to me, as if the minds that had once occupied them had returned to the secluded amplitudes of their cranial roosts. I fancied I could see the glow of life in their hollowed eyes as I assessed each one, and yet, when I listened to them, to the manner of their speech, the words they intoned made no sense to me. It was as if they were speaking in tongues of the dead, which no amount of computation or deciphering could render clear to the ears of a mere mortal. It was a language that lacked the musicality of animated human utterances, and seemed more in keeping with a thronging resonance from distant worlds. In time, I became lost in the blur of their address, and in that moment, as I sank into the phonetic welter of their vocalizations, something strange and troubling occurred to me. When the murmuring of their speech was heard in unison, it became possible for me to comprehend the collective meaning of the words as I absorbed them en masse, and that they communicated a comprehensive arrangement of significations that, when totalized, this time, made perfect sense to me. I shudder now as I recall the gist of their confabulations and the singular message it conveyed to me, which was intended solely for my ears alone. I call it a message, but in truth it was more of an augury, the mention of a date, a time, a place, and the manner in which it was bound to happen, my own death, and statistical configurations of the event, presented to me in great detail and with a sense of inevitability that seemed set in stone. It was a prevision of the day that I must join the skulls in their positions of exhibition within the glass cases, to chatter among them in a blur of murmuring, and to take my place as one of their own. Professor Escoffier has recently visited the skull collection of Dr. Fleemus herself, but without the consumption of the narcotic recommended by him as a means of enhancing the experience. She did, however, write in her missive that the viewing of the skulls had occasioned in her a feeling of intense strangeness, such as that the empty sockets of the skulls were actually seeing from the piths of their blackness, and that they were watching her as she passed among them with a conscious appreciation of her form. At her invitation, and with the approval of Dr. Fleemus himself, we have travelled to Edinburgh with the Parafaction Sound Investigation System in order to conduct a sonic inquiry of the viewing chamber, to undertake an acoustic survey of the skull collection, which we have done with the following results. There now follows a pause in proceedings for direct messages in relation to extraterrestrial research activities known to the involved members as the Windy Heads Portfolio. We have received a telegram from Our Lady of Dark Secrets, Professor Marion Taknassus, who says nothing of her whereabouts except that she is currently active in the remote regions of the northeast of Scotland. The message reads as follows. Pursuing evidence of the Pictish Cryfrahin in northern Scotland. Stop. Similarities with accounts in the Appalachians, Dolomites, Damaraland, and the Jordanian Highlands. Stop. Dr. Vargas in Vienna has all related research materials up to date. Stop. We bring this special interjection to a close. More will follow in regards to the Windy Heads Portfolio in future transmissions. Postscript to Dr. Fleemus's skull collection. About a month or so after we had undertaken the sonic inquiry of the viewing chamber, we received a disturbing message from Professor Madeleine Escoffier, who informed us of the tragic death of the anonymous narrator, whose visit to the skull collection we have recounted in the current transmission. She informs us that the narrator, whom we can now reveal to be the esteemed anatomist Dr. Horace Dalrymple, was found dead on the morning of the 5th of October 1932 as a result of unexplained but catastrophic injuries. It is worth noting, as we have since discovered, that Dr. Dalrymple had requested that, in the event of his death, his body was to be donated to the Royal College of Surgeons for medical research, and that his skull should be given to his colleague and friend, the phrenologist, Dr. Edgar Fleemus, for whatever purposes he had in mind. This is the voice of the Committee of Enigmas. Please join me for the next broadcast, which will be transmitted via the appropriate frequencies at the appointed time in accordance to the Code Magnus cryptographic formula, index variation 58347. I repeat, index variation 58347.